Hello! Today we're on Conquest of Azeroth, which is, kind of part of Ascension. For those of you that do not know, it's a upcoming Ascension project, kinda. It comes from this old project called Conquest of Azeroth, which I actually played back in the day. It was kind of it never really came to fruition though. It had a lot of bugs, and I think the dev got busy, but Ascension ended up hiring him, and years later they hired him, and he's back working on this project, and it's come a long way. I played on here, months ago when it first came out, and it's really come a long way, and it's looking pretty good. But today I want to talk about the Necromancer. So this is my feedback for the Necromancer. We're going to show a little bit of gameplay. I'm going to talk about all the specs, but I am currently at animation. This summoning mastery kind of bugs the tree out and let me pick 3 things up here by unlearning stuff in here. Probably not intended, but whatever. That's what we did. So I got to kind of get to taste kind of a little bit of how the in-game build would work, because I kind of would want all 3 of these, because if I play animation I want the the summoning experience. Anyway, so we'll talk about the class a little bit. So before we do the showcase, I just want to talk about some general issues I have with the class. The life force system. The increased damage done and increased damage taken mechanic is bad. You can see it here, currently taking 4% increased damage but dealing 3% increased damage. This is with essentially 0 life force. I can't make that debuff go away because I can't, I'm at 0. But this mechanic, it's so if you summon a minion, your life force goes down, and this buff loses a stack. So I guess the idea is, if you want to be full glass cannon, not really for animation, but for rhyme and death, then you're probably gonna want to not have any minions out. But it doesn't even really work that way. If you're death, you've got this crypt leaper, this geist here, crypt leaper, and he gives me 3% increased nature and shadow damage, as well as doing his own damage. He also does his own debuff that buffs periodic nature damage, which which is what death does. But it's also got this reduced movement speed reduction buff thing too. But whatever. Yeah. So I don't think it's even worth it to not have any life force, but I think the idea is you can become a glass cannon by having no minions, and I don't like that. It's just the increased damage done and taken mechanic. Just anytime a DPS has a mechanic like that, all it really ends up doing is putting pressure on the healer. It's kind of hard to balance. It ends up being something like that the Necromancer, or whenever this mechanic is present, it's something like that the DPS isn't that worried about, except when they're soloing or whatever. But in a raid setting or something, it falls on the healer, and then in PvP it's going to be almost never worth it to use. And if it is worth it to be a glass cannon in PvP, it means you're one-shotting people, which usually ends up getting nerfed, and it's not great design. So I think this life force mechanic should be redesigned, and this debuff aspect of it should just be gone. So the way that I would do it, my prospective change for how this should work is the class should start with 4 life force, which it currently does, and you start with a tank pet that costs 4 life force, some sort of skeleton with a shield or something. And then at level 10 you get a new pet option, like a frost mage skeleton thing if you're rhyme, some sort of plague pet, or this geist if you're death. And then animation gets access to all 3 while reducing the life force cost and granting access to the current brittle skeleton and bone archer stuff, which are these. Animation I think is really the only spec that's going to use brittle skeletons or skeletal archers. So the other specs don't really need it anyway. And having a pet with a real action bar would also let them get rid of this, which kind of is taking the place of the action bar, because this is defensive, this is offensive, and this is assist, I think. Anyway, it's really not or this is passive, this is aggressive, and this is whatever the other one's called, defensive, I think. But Anyway, you never want, like in PvE, if you use aggressive, like the minions will charge off, which is really bad. So you don't want to use aggressive really ever, even though I think it's the best. I don't know. This is not. I think having one of these with an action bar that controlled the rest of them, like if you put, like if it was like this guy who's kind of like my main pet for this spec, if you put him like passive, make the rest passive and they come back to you, which is how like the Demology Summoner like Warlock that we have on retail works, and I think really that would be a good idea for this to work like that as well. So that's what I would do with the Life Force, and for Rhyme and Plague, an option like late in the tree to turn the like ice skeleton into a lich, or turn the plague thing into some bigger plague thing if you're Death. I think that would be cool. And then Rhyme and Death also get options that cost 4 life force that grant some kind of permanent buff, to boost their damage. So if they want to be petless, they can run that instead, and maybe have that as an option. I think that'll just be better. You get rid of these, which I think these are a little get clunky. I think just it'd be a system that kind of makes more sense, is a little bit more familiar to WoW, for WoW players, and I just think it's a little bit better. Anyway, and also the mana resource I think is pretty unneeded. I mean, you can't even see it right now. You've got this like jumbled thing here. I don't know if this is an issue with my UI or what, but I don't have any add-ons installed except Recount, I think. So I think mana just should go for Necromancer. This got runes as one resource. It's got the life force thing that like mostly reanimation or animation that mostly animation messes with, and it's got like this, what's it called? The runic power and the foul remnants, and the other specs kind of have their own stuff to manage too. So I think it's got plenty of resources without mana being one. So I would really just get rid of mana, unless it's serving some purpose I don't understand. So now onto the specific specs. Death. I think Death is pretty cool, like thematically. Rotation is okay. It's not really my favorite, but it's not terrible. I think the handful of extra spells from hitting 60 will really improve the spec. Something I don't like at all are the maladies. In PvP, the target's just going to get fully healed and lose the debuff, and in PvE, Death is going to be forced to run Sower of Sickness, which is a talent that lets Malady stack twice, and Malady of Rot. So Malady of Rot is this, and then I don't know where Sower of Sickness is at. But Sower of Sickness lets, here it is. So Sower of Sickness makes them last 10 less seconds. So Malady of Rot would last 20 seconds, have a 12-second cooldown. And it lets them stack twice. And my issue with this is, so that's going to be, this is Malady of Rot. So that's going to be making it do 16% increased shadow and nature damage. So in PvE, you're just going to be forced to run this for other classes. So you're going to be like recasting this debuff all the time. And the other maladies, which are also pretty good, you might just end up casting, I don't know if they share cooldowns, I didn't test that, I should have, but you're just going to end up spamming these maladies, and you're going to be this kind of weird debuff class that I don't think that's going to really feel great. But aside from that potentially problematic issue, I think it feels pretty good, and like I said, being 60 will help it a lot in my opinion, because you just have a few more spells for the rotation. And let's see. Oh yeah, animation, which we're gonna do the showcase on. Animation, it's really cool thematically. I think there's gonna be a ton of people on animation. I do think this animate Rotlings, which I've picked a talent here to make it instant, which reduces the life force that you've got, so you have like you have less minions if you pick this talent. But this having a cast time feels awful. I don't think it should have a cast time or a runic power cost, because it already costs Foul Remnants, which is animation's like unique resource. So yeah, I don't like that at all. I think that should go, and then this Zombomancy talent should have some other kind of effect with it instead of the instant cast. So that just needs to be baseline. You know, it makes the rotation feels terrible without this. But aside from that, so you got a lot of these. I don't know, this is pretty cool. You know, as you can see, I believe this is like kind of the intended shape of the tree, so there is more coming for this and for Rhyme as well, I believe. And I've kind of like cheated and got my level 60, or you know, kind of like something similar to what I'd be running at 60, because I definitely want all of this. Kind of like glitched it out and got those. So I'll be showing that in a minute, but yeah, I think this spec's pretty cool. And Rhyme, I think a few extra buttons would really serve it well. I'm not sure if it's using Flesh to Worms and Harvest Plague, which are these two debuffs. Like, these are kind of like staples for the death spec. I don't know if Rhyme wants to be using them. I kind of hope not, because that would be a little bit clunky, I think. They've got this thing called Ice Crown, which is just Frost Dot with no cooldown. And I think that should be what you use instead of, you know, Harvest Plague and Flesh to Worms. You know, I'd hate for Rhyme to be a spec that's like trying to upkeep 3 dots. But yeah, the spec's definitely missing a little something. I think, you know, being 60 will really help it, because, you know, you have a few more spells, and that might kind of fix what, you know, what I think's not quite perfect about it. But I think Rhyme's pretty cool. But yeah, overall, I like this class, and we're gonna show a little bit here. Let's get close, because the minions have a problem. In this, yeah, some of the stuff, of course, like, I don't know the ideal rotation, sorry. I don't know the ideal rotation for this, but you can see I've got so many pets coming out here. And if I were 60, I'd have even more. So, something to consider. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I, definitely like this spec a lot. I've played some of the other classes on here too, and this definitely seems to be one of the ones that is both the most popular and, you know, kind of the most interesting. So yeah, big fan of that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, anyway, so that is it for the showcase, and I'll see you guys next time.